I watched through my kitchen window as 3 feet of fresh snow buried my driveway in Fargo, North Dakota. And the only thought running through my mind was how grateful I felt for installing that GPS tracker on my expensive roof rake last month. Little did I know that paranoid decision would lead to the arrest of Patricia Cunningham, president of the Willowbrook Estates Homeowners Association, within 48 hours. My name is Marcus Ingram, and I had lived in this neighborhood for 2 years without major incident, until Patricia took over the HOA board last September. The woman was 53 years old with that specific haircut that screamed trouble, blonde highlights over dark roots, and she drove a white Lexus SUV with custom plates that read HOPRES. From day one, she made it clear that rules were her religion and violations were sins she would not tolerate. The November blizzard hit Fargo hard that year, dumping snow faster than the city plows could handle. By morning, my roof looked like it was wearing a 3-foot hat, and I knew from experience that Dakota winters did not mess around. Ice dams could form within days, and the last thing I needed was water damage seeping into my attic. That roof rake had cost me $470. A professional-grade telescoping model with a reinforced blade that could reach my 2-story colonial's peak without requiring a ladder. After my neighbor 2 streets over had his tools stolen from his garage last month, I had purchased a small GPS tracker from a hunting supply store, the kind people used to track their dogs or valuable equipment. I attached it inside the hollow aluminum handle where nobody would notice unless they were specifically looking for it. I grabbed my heaviest winter coat and headed outside around 8 in the morning. The cold hit my face like a slap, that particular North Dakota cold that makes your nostril hairs freeze instantly. My breath came out in thick clouds as I trudged through the snow to my garage, fighting against wind that seemed determined to push me back inside. The garage door opener groaned in protest against the cold but eventually lifted. I flipped on the light and looked at the wall where I kept my rake. It was gone. The mounting brackets were empty, and there were no signs of forced entry. I stood there confused for a solid minute, wondering if maybe I had moved it somewhere and forgotten. But no, I was meticulous about my tools. Everything had its place. I checked the other corner where I kept my shovels and smaller tools, all present and accounted for. Only the roof rake was missing. I walked back inside and checked the app on my phone that connected to the GPS tracker. The little device was still transmitting, showing a location about 6 streets away. My stomach dropped as I zoomed in on the map. The signal was coming from inside a house on Maple Ridge Drive. I knew that address. Everyone in the neighborhood knew that address. It was Patricia Cunningham's house. At first, I thought maybe there was some mistake. Perhaps the GPS was malfunctioning or the signal was bouncing off something. I refreshed the app 3 times, but the location remained steady. My roof rake was definitely at the HOA president's house, and I had not loaned it to her or given her permission to take it. I called my buddy Derek, who lived in the next development over. He answered on the 3rd ring, sounding groggy. "Marcus, it's 8 in the morning on a Saturday. This better be good. Patricia Cunningham stole my roof rake." There was a pause, then a laugh. "What? The HOA lady? Why would she steal your rake?" "I have no idea, but I have GPS proof. The tracker is showing it at her house right now." Derek whistled low. "Man, that's wild." "What are you going to do?" "I'm going over there to get it back. Can you come with me? I want a witness in case this gets weird." "Give me 20 minutes. I need coffee first." While I waited, I took screenshots of the GPS location, making sure to capture the timestamp and exact coordinates. Something told me I would need documentation. I also recorded a quick video showing the empty mounting brackets in my garage and my phone screen displaying the tracker's location. My hands shook slightly as I filmed, partly from cold and partly from anger. Who steals someone's roof rake during a blizzard? That was not just theft, it was sabotage. Without that rake, I risked serious damage to my home. Derek arrived in his pickup truck, exhaust billowing white in the frigid air. I climbed in, grateful for the working heater. "So what's the plan?" he asked as we drove toward Maple Ridge Drive. "I'm going to knock on her door politely and ask for my rake back. Maybe there's some explanation." "You really think Patricia Cunningham has an innocent explanation for having your property?" "No, but I'm going to give her the chance to come clean before I escalate this." We pulled up to her house, a large brick two-story with decorative shutters and a perfectly manicured lawn that was currently buried under snow. Her white Lexus sat in the driveway, along with a silver Audi that probably belonged to her husband. I noticed her roof was completely clear of snow, not a single flake on it. My jaw clenched. Derek and I walked up to her front door, our boots crunching through the snow. I rang the doorbell and heard chimes echo inside. Footsteps approached, and the door swung open to reveal Patricia Cunningham in an expensive-looking velour tracksuit, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. "Marcus, what are you doing here?" Her tone was immediately defensive, not friendly or curious, but defensive. "Good morning, Patricia. I'm here because my roof rake went missing from my garage and I have reason to believe it might have ended up here by mistake." Her face remained neutral, but I saw her fingers tighten on the door frame. "I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't been near your garage. The rake has a GPS tracker on it and it's showing this location right now." I held up my phone, showing her the screen. Her expression shifted from neutral to hostile in an instant. "Are you accusing me of theft? That's incredibly insulting. I'm the HOA president. Why would I need your rake?" "That's what I'm trying to understand. Your roof is clear and mine is buried. My $400 rake is missing and the GPS says it's here. Can you check your garage? Maybe someone else in your household picked it up by accident. Get off my property right now, or I'll call the police." Derek stepped forward. "Madam, he's not being aggressive. He just wants his property back. If you don't have it, then let's figure out where it actually is. But the GPS doesn't lie. Those trackers aren't accurate. It's probably at someone else's house and the signal is confused. Now leave before I file a harassment complaint with the county." She slammed the door in our faces. Derek and I stood there in the cold, looking at each other. "Well, that went great," Derek muttered. I checked my phone again. The GPS signal had not moved. It was definitely inside her property, likely in her garage or basement. I took another screenshot with the timestamp. "I'm calling the police," I said, pulling up the non-emergency number. "You sure? They might say it's a civil matter." "She just threatened to call them on me. I'm not letting her control the narrative." The dispatcher answered, and I explained the situation calmly. I emphasized that I had GPS tracking evidence and that the item was worth over $400, making it grand theft under North Dakota law. The dispatcher said she would send an officer to my location to take a statement. We waited in Derek's truck with the heat blasting. About 20 minutes later, a Fargo Police Department cruiser pulled up. A young officer, probably late 20s, stepped out. His name tag read Officer Jensen. I got out and met him on the sidewalk, showing him my driver's license and explaining the situation from the beginning. I showed him the screenshots, the video from my garage, and the current GPS location. Officer Jensen studied my phone carefully. "This is pretty solid evidence." "Have you had any previous conflicts with this neighbor?" She's the HOA president. "We've had some disagreements about rules. Nothing major. A few months ago, she cited me for leaving my trash cans out 4 hours past collection time. Last month, she sent me a violation notice because my house numbers were 3 inches too small according to some obscure regulation. But I've never had a personal confrontation until now. And you're certain you didn't give her permission to borrow this rake? Absolutely certain. I didn't even know she needed one until I saw her roof was cleared this morning. Officer Jensen nodded. Okay, I'll go talk to her. Wait here. Derek and I watched as the officer walked up to Patricia's door. This time when she answered, her demeanor was completely different. She smiled warmly, gesturing as she spoke. We could not hear the conversation, but we saw her shake her head several times and point toward my house. The officer showed her something on his own phone, probably asking about the GPS evidence. Her smile faded. She crossed her arms. The conversation continued for several more minutes before Officer Jensen returned to where we stood. She denies having the rake and refuses to let me search the property without a warrant. She claims the GPS is malfunctioning and you're harassing her because of HOA disputes. My frustration boiled over. But the GPS is right there. It's in her house. I understand, Mr. Ingram, but I can't force entry without probable cause or a warrant. The GPS evidence is compelling, but it's not absolute. I'm going to file a report, and I strongly suggest you go to the police station and formally document everything. With this level of evidence, you can pursue charges, and a detective might be able to get a warrant. So she just gets away with it. Not at all. This is documented now. I'm noting in my report that she refused a voluntary search, despite GPS evidence pointing to her property. That looks very suspicious, but we have to follow procedure. Go to the station, file a detailed complaint, and bring all your evidence. Push for grand theft charges, since the item is worth over $400. That's a felony in North Dakota if the property value exceeds $1,000, and class a misdemeanor for property worth between $500 and $1,000, but still serious enough to warrant investigation. I took a deep breath, trying to calm down. Okay, thank you, officer. After Officer Jensen left, Derek drove me back to my house. What now? He asked. Now I go to the police station and make sure this is handled properly. Can you help me shovel my driveway first? I need to get my car out. Yeah, man. Of course. We spent the next hour clearing my driveway by hand. Without the roof rake, I watched my roof anxiously, knowing every hour that passed increased the risk of ice dam formation. By the time we finished shoveling, I was exhausted and furious. Derek headed home, and I grabbed my laptop and all my evidence files. The Fargo police station was busy on a Saturday morning, full of people dealing with winter accident reports and other issues. I waited 45 minutes before speaking with a detective named Mitchell Hendricks, a middle-aged man with graying hair and tired eyes that suggested he had seen everything. I laid out the entire situation, showing him every piece of evidence. He listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes on his computer. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. Mr. Ingram, this is one of the more clear-cut theft cases I've seen in a while. GPS evidence is very reliable, especially if you can show the tracker was functioning properly before and after the alleged theft. The fact that she refused a voluntary search when confronted with this evidence is highly suspicious. I'm going to open an investigation and request a search warrant. How long will that take for the warrant? Could be a few hours or tomorrow morning, depending on which judge is available, but I'll move on this quickly. The GPS evidence gives a strong probable cause. Do you have the serial number or any other identifying marks on the rake? Yes, I registered it with the manufacturer for the warranty. I have the serial number in my email. Perfect. Send that to me. If we find the rake, that'll be definitive proof. I gave Detective Hendricks all my contact information and sent him the registration email right there from my phone. He assured me someone would contact me as soon as they had news. I drove home feeling slightly better but still angry about the entire situation. My roof was still covered in dangerous amounts of snow, and I could not rent or borrow another rake in time. Most hardware stores in Fargo were sold out after the blizzard, with delivery times stretching into next week. That evening, I received a violation notice in my mailbox. It was from the HOA, signed by Patricia Cunningham. The notice stated that my roof was carrying excessive snow accumulation that posed a potential hazard to neighboring properties, and I was required to clear it within 24 hours or face daily fines of $100. The sheer audacity made my blood pressure spike. She stole the tool I needed to fix the violation she was citing me for. I immediately scanned the notice and emailed it to Detective Hendricks with a note explaining the timing. This was not just theft anymore. This was theft with the intent to cause me financial harm through HOA fines she knew I could not avoid. This was calculated malice. Sunday morning came with no news from the police. I called Derek and another neighbor, Tom, and we attempted to clear my roof using a regular snow shovel on an extension pole. It was dangerous, ineffective, and exhausting. We managed to clear maybe 20% before admitting defeat. "You need to document this," Tom said. "Take photos showing you tried to comply but couldn't because your equipment was stolen." He was right. I photographed our attempts, the inadequate tools, and the still dangerous snow accumulation. I also documented the outside temperature, which was holding steady at 8 degrees Fahrenheit, perfect ice dam weather. Around 2 in the afternoon, my phone rang. "Detective Hendricks." "Mr. Ingram, we obtained a search warrant for Patricia Cunningham's residence. We're executing it in about 30 minutes. Would you be available to identify your property if we locate it?" "Absolutely." "Should I come to her house?" "No, wait at home. If we find it, we'll bring it to you and need you to confirm ownership and sign some paperwork." Those 30 minutes felt like 3 hours. I paced my living room, checking the GPS app obsessively. The tracker was still showing the same location at Patricia's house. I imagined her face when the police showed up with a warrant. Part of me felt guilty for the thought, but mostly I felt justified. She had stolen from me and then tried to fine me for the consequences of her theft. My phone rang again 45 minutes later. "Mr. Ingram, we found your roof rake. It was in Mrs. Cunningham's garage, partially hidden behind some storage boxes. The GPS tracker was still inside. We'll be at your location in 10 minutes to return it and get your statement." Relief flooded through me. "Thank you, Detective. Thank you so much. Don't thank me yet. We need to confirm everything properly. See you soon." Detective Hendricks arrived with Officer Jensen and another uniformed officer. They had my roof rake in the back of the detective's unmarked car, sealed in a clear evidence bag. Through the plastic, I could see the distinctive red and silver coloring, the telescoping mechanism, and the manufacturer's logo. "Is this your property?" Detective Hendricks asked formally. "Yes, that's definitely my roof rake." "Can you identify any specific characteristics that confirm ownership?" I pointed to a small dent near the base. "I dropped it on my driveway about a month ago, left that ding, and the serial number should be on the handle under the grip." I showed him the email with the serial number. Officer Jensen carefully removed the rake from the bag, wearing gloves. He found the serial number exactly where I indicated. It matched perfectly. "Mr. Ingram, for the record, did you at any time give Patricia Cunningham permission to take or borrow this roof rake?" No, absolutely not. I never gave her permission, and she never asked. Did you have any agreement with her regarding property use or sharing of equipment? No. We've only ever communicated about HOA business, and that's been through official notices and one confrontational conversation about violation citations. Detective Hendricks nodded, making notes. Okay, the rake is being processed as evidence, so we'll need to keep it for now. You should have it back within a week or two, depending on how quickly the case moves. My heart sank. But I need it right now. My roof is a hazard, and she sent me a violation notice threatening daily fines if I don't clear it. The detective's expression hardened. She sent you a violation notice for a problem caused by her theft of your solution. Do you have that notice? Yes, I emailed it to you last night. Right, I saw that. This adds another layer to the case. Let me make some calls. Given the circumstances, we might be able to release the property to you sooner than usual once we've fully documented everything. Can you give us a couple hours? It was not ideal, but it was better than nothing. Okay, thank you. After they left, I sat in my living room processing everything. Patricia Cunningham had actually done this. The HOA president had committed theft, and not just casual theft, but calculated theft designed to cause me additional financial harm through HOA fines. The question was why? What did she gain from this? I called Derek to update him. He was shocked by the developments but not entirely surprised. Patricia's been on a power trip since she got elected. My cousin lives in your neighborhood, and he says she's been terrorizing people with violation notices for months. Someone's grass was a quarter-inch too tall. Someone else's mailbox was the wrong shade of black. She's out of control. Well, now she's facing criminal charges. Good. Some people need to learn that rules apply to them too. Around 5 that evening, Detective Hendricks called again. Mr. Ingram, we've finished processing your roof rake for evidence. We photographed it, documented the serial number, and confirmed the GPS tracker's location data. You can pick it up at the station tonight if you want, or we can drop it off. I'll come get it. Thank you so much for expediting this. Between you and me, this case annoyed me. HOA board members are supposed to serve their community, not abuse their position. Mrs. Cunningham is being charged with Class A misdemeanor theft. Given the value of the item and the circumstances, the prosecutor might add charges related to the HOA violation notice. That could be considered extortion or criminal coercion. I drove to the station and retrieved my roof rake, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. On the drive home, I thought about what Detective Hendricks said about additional charges. Patricia had not just stolen from me. She had then used her HOA authority to threaten me with fines for not fixing the problem her theft created. That seemed like textbook coercion. As soon as I got home, I went straight to my roof despite the darkness and bitter cold. I set up work lights and spent 2 hours carefully pulling snow off my roof. The rake worked beautifully, exactly as it had been designed to do. By the time I finished, my arms ached and my face was numb from cold, but my roof was clear and safe. Monday morning brought new developments. I received a call from the county prosecutor's office. A woman named Assistant District Attorney Sarah Brennan wanted to meet with me about the case. Mr. Ingram, I've reviewed the evidence Detective Hendricks collected. This is a strong case, but I want to make sure I understand all the details, particularly regarding the HOA violation notice. Can you come to my office this afternoon? I took time off work and met with Ada Brennan at 2. She was in her 40s, professional and direct. She had printed copies of all my evidence spread across her desk. Walk me through the timeline again, she said. I want to make sure I have this absolutely clear. I explained everything from the blizzard to discovering the theft. the GPS tracking, Patricia's refusal to return the property, her cleared roof, and then the violation notice threatening fines. Ada Brennan tapped the violation notice. This is the key piece for me. She stole the tool you needed to clear your roof, then threatened you with fines when you couldn't clear it. That demonstrates intent to cause you financial harm beyond the theft itself. I'm going to charge her with Class A misdemeanor theft and add a charge of criminal coercion under North Dakota Century Code Section 12.11710. That's a Class C felony. My eyes widened. A felony? I didn't think it would go that far. Criminal coercion occurs when someone threatens another person with the intent to make them do something or prevent them from doing something they have a right to do. She stole your rake, knowing you needed it to comply with HOA regulations, then threatened you with fines when you couldn't comply. That's textbook coercion. The fact that she's the HOA president makes it worse because she's abusing a position of authority. What happens now? We'll arraign her, probably within the next week. She'll have the option to accept a plea deal or go to trial. Given the GPS evidence and the paper trail she created herself with that violation notice, I expect her attorney will advise her to take a deal. But we'll see. I left the prosecutor's office feeling strange. What started as someone stealing my roof rake had escalated into felony charges. Part of me felt guilty, but the rational part reminded me that Patricia had done this to herself. Every action she took was a choice. That evening, I received an email from the HOA board. It was from the vice president, a man named Greg Stanton, whom I had met a few times at neighborhood events. The email stated that Patricia Cunningham had been placed on administrative leave from her HOA duties, pending the outcome of legal proceedings. Greg would assume her responsibilities temporarily. He also noted that the violation notice sent to my address had been rescinded and apologized for any distress it caused. I appreciated the gesture, but it felt inadequate given everything that had happened. Still, at least the fines were no longer a concern. The next few days passed quietly. I went to work, cleared snow from my driveway, and tried to return to normal life. But the neighborhood was buzzing with gossip. News of Patricia's arrest had spread quickly. I did not discuss it with anyone except Derek and Tom, but apparently other people were coming forward with their own stories about Patricia's behavior. On Wednesday, I received a call from Ada Brennan. "Mr. Ingram, I wanted to update you. Mrs. Cunningham was arraigned this morning. She pled not guilty to all charges and posted bail. Her attorney is already reaching out about a possible plea agreement." "What kind of agreement?" "They're proposing she plead guilty to the theft charge and one count of misdemeanor coercion in exchange for dropping the felony charge. She'd face probation, restitution, and removal from her HOA position." "What do you think I should do?" "That's entirely up to you. This is your case. From a practical standpoint, the plea saves you from having to testify at trial and guarantees a conviction. From a justice standpoint, the felony charge reflects the severity of what she did. You need to decide what outcome you want." I thought about it for the rest of the day. That night, I discussed it with Derek over beers at a local bar. "Man, I don't know," Derek said. "Part of me says throw the book at her. She was intentionally trying to screw you over. But another part says take the plea and be done with it. Probation and restitution still punishes her, and she loses her HOA power trip." I keep going back and forth. If I push for the felony, she could end up with serious consequences. Lose her job maybe if she has one. It affects her whole life. Did she think about your life when she stole your rake and tried to fine you? Come on, Marcus. She's not the victim here. He was right, but I still felt conflicted. The next morning, I called Ada Brennan. "I've thought about the plea deal. My main concern is making sure she can't do this to anyone else. If the plea agreement includes permanent removal from any HOA board position and ensures she understands the seriousness of what she did, I'm okay with accepting it. I can include those terms. Permanent prohibition from holding HOA office and mandatory completion of a theft prevention program as part of her probation. Then yes, I'll accept the plea. The plea hearing was scheduled for the following Monday. I attended, sitting in the back of the courtroom. Patricia arrived with her attorney, a tall man in an expensive suit. She looked diminished somehow, less commanding than when she had stood in her doorway telling me to leave her property. The judge reviewed the plea agreement carefully. Patricia stood and admitted to stealing my roof rake and to sending the violation notice with coercive intent. She agreed to pay full restitution for the rake, court costs, and to serve 2 years of probation with community service. She also agreed to permanently resign from the Willowbrook Estates HOA board and never hold HOA office in any capacity. When the judge asked if she understood the terms, Patricia's voice was quiet. "Yes, Your Honor. Mrs. Cunningham, abuse of authority is a serious matter. You held a position of trust in your community, and you violated that trust by committing theft and then using your position to attempt financial coercion against your victim. This court does not take such matters lightly. You're fortunate the victim and prosecutor agreed to this plea. I'm accepting it, but understand that any violation of your probation terms will result in severe consequences. Do you understand?" "Yes, Your Honor, I understand." The judge banged his gavel. "Plea accepted. This case is concluded." I walked out of the courthouse feeling a strange mix of relief and hollowness. It was over, but nothing felt particularly victorious. Patricia's life was altered permanently over a roof rake. Then again, it was not really about the rake, was it? It was about power and control and someone who thought rules only applied to other people. Outside the courthouse, Patricia's attorney approached me. "Mr. Ingram, my client would like to apologize to you personally if you're willing to hear it." I hesitated, then nodded. "Okay." Patricia walked over, her eyes red-rimmed. "I'm sorry for what I did. There's no excuse. I was frustrated with my own roof situation. My husband was out of town, the snow was piling up, and I saw your rake in your garage when I was doing neighborhood inspections. I told myself I'd just borrow it and return it before you noticed. Then when you showed up with that GPS evidence, I panicked. Instead of coming clean, I doubled down. The violation notice was vindictive and stupid. I'm truly sorry." I looked at her for a long moment. "Patricia, if you had just asked to borrow it, I would have said yes. If you had taken it and then apologized when confronted, this would have ended differently. But you stole it, lied about it, and then tried to punish me for not having it. That's not a mistake. That's calculated." "I know. I've lost everything over this. My reputation, my position, the respect of my neighbors. I have to live with that." "Good luck with your probation," I said and walked away. Derek was waiting by his truck. "How do you feel?" he asked, tired, ready for this to be over. "It is over, man. She's done. The neighborhood is rid of her tyranny and you got justice. That's a win." He was right, though it did not feel like the satisfying victory I had imagined. Over the next few weeks, life slowly returned to normal. Greg Stanton proved to be a reasonable HOA president, focusing on actual community concerns rather than microscopic violations. He sent out a newsletter apologizing for the previous administration's approach and promising a more collaborative relationship with residents. I received a check from Patricia for $470 covering the cost of my roof rake plus the restitution terms. I deposited it and tried to put the whole ordeal behind me. A month later, I ran into Patricia at the grocery store. We made eye contact across the produce section. She looked away quickly and hurried toward the exit. I felt a pang of something, maybe pity, maybe relief that I did not have to interact with her. That spring, the HOA held elections for board positions. I considered running but ultimately decided against it. I had no desire for that kind of responsibility or stress. Instead, I focused on my own property, planting a garden and finally finishing the deck renovation I had been planning for 2 years. The GPS tracker remained attached to my roof rake. I never removed it. Every time I used the rake, I thought about how a $30 device had solved a crime and held someone accountable. It seemed both absurd and profound. Derek and I occasionally joked about the incident when we got together for barbecues or football games. "Remember when the HOA president committed a felony over a snow rake?" he would say, shaking his head. It became neighborhood legend, the story that got told at block parties and newcomer welcome meetings. Patricia Cunningham became a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power and petty authority. I learned some things from the experience beyond the practical value of GPS trackers. I learned that documentation matters, that standing up for yourself is worth the trouble, and that some people will only respect boundaries when faced with consequences. I also learned that justice, even when achieved, rarely feels as satisfying as you hope it will. The following winter brought more snow, as North Dakota winters always did. I cleared my roof efficiently with my trusty rake, watching the GPS app out of habit even though there was no danger. My driveway stayed clear, my roof remained safe, and no HOA violation notices appeared in my mailbox. One February afternoon, I was clearing snow when Tom stopped by. "Hey Marcus, my rake just broke. Any chance I could borrow yours for an hour?" I did not even hesitate. "Sure, just bring it back when you are done." "You trust me with the famous GPS rake?" he joked. "I trust my neighbors, the ones who act like neighbors." He laughed and took the rake, returning it 90 minutes later with sincere thanks. That simple interaction, that basic community trust and reciprocity, was what HOAs were supposed to facilitate. Patricia had forgotten that in her quest for control and compliance. Months passed, seasons changed, and the incident faded from immediate memory, though it never disappeared entirely. Occasionally, I would see Patricia driving through the neighborhood. She always looked straight ahead, never making eye contact with anyone. Her husband apparently still lived with her, though rumors suggested their marriage was strained. Her adult children stopped visiting as frequently. The social consequences of her actions extended far beyond the legal penalties. The Willowbrook Estates HOA thrived under new leadership. Greg Stanton implemented common-sense policies focused on maintaining property values while respecting individual homeowner autonomy. Violation notices decreased dramatically, community participation increased, and the neighborhood felt more cohesive. People started actually attending HOA meetings instead of avoiding them. At one meeting that summer, someone proposed creating a community tool sharing program where neighbors could borrow equipment like leaf blowers, pressure washers, and yes, roof rakes. The irony was not lost on anyone in the room. We laughed about it, voted it through, and established guidelines that included simple checkout procedures and basic accountability measures. I donated my old roof rake from before I bought the expensive one, keeping my GPS-equipped model for personal use. Years later, when my daughter asked me about the incident after hearing the story from a neighborhood kid, I tried to explain it in terms she could understand. Someone in charge made bad choices because they thought their position meant they could do whatever they wanted. but rules apply to everyone, especially the people enforcing them. Did she learn her lesson? My daughter asked. I hope so. Whether she did or not, everyone else learned something important. Power without accountability becomes abuse, and communities work better when people treat each other with basic respect and honesty. My daughter nodded thoughtfully. Your rake is famous, Dad. Yeah, it kind of is. The rake itself remained functional and reliable, clearing countless snowfalls over subsequent winters. The GPS tracker eventually died, its battery depleted after years of use. I never replaced it. I did not need to. The neighborhood had changed, the HOA had changed, and the culture of petty tyranny had been replaced with actual community cooperation. Sometimes I wondered if Patricia ever thought about that November morning when she decided to take my rake. Did she regret it immediately, or did the regret only come after she got caught? Did she understand that her mistake was not just the theft, but the pattern of behavior that made the theft seem reasonable to her? I would never know the answers to those questions, and truthfully, they did not matter. What mattered was that justice had been served, accountability had been enforced, and the community had moved forward stronger for the experience. The story spread beyond Willowbrook Estates. Other HOAs in Fargo and surrounding areas heard about it and adjusted their own policies and oversight procedures. Local media ran a feature on HOA accountability, using Patricia's case as an example without naming her directly due to legal considerations. The prosecutor's office started taking HOA-related complaints more seriously, recognizing that abuse of authority in these organizations could have real consequences for residents. For me, life continued in its ordinary patterns. I went to work, maintained my house, hung out with friends, and participated in neighborhood activities. The roof rake incident became just one story among many in the tapestry of my life, significant but not defining. On the 5th anniversary of the incident, Derek brought it up over beers. Remember when we drove over to Patricia's house in the freezing cold and she slammed the door in our faces? How could I forget? I was convinced I'd never see that rake again. Technology, man. GPS saved the day. GPS and good police work. Detective Hendricks took me seriously when he could have blown it off as a neighbor dispute. True. You got lucky with him. Some cops would have said it was civil and told you to sue in small claims. I'm aware. The whole thing could have gone very differently at multiple points. We clinked our bottles together, toasting to justice served and lessons learned. The conversation moved on to other topics, as conversations do, but the reminder of how precarious the whole situation had been stayed with me. Later that night, I stood in my garage looking at the roof rake mounted on its brackets. The red and silver colors had faded slightly from years of sun exposure and use. The aluminum showed scratches and wear from countless snow-clearing sessions. It was just a tool, functional and utilitarian, but it represented something larger. It represented the principle that people should be held accountable for their actions regardless of their position or authority. I thought about Patricia Cunningham sometimes, wondering if she had rebuilt her life or if the consequences still weighed on her. I hoped she had found some peace and learned genuine lessons from the experience. Holding a grudge served no purpose. Justice had been achieved, and dwelling on past wrongs only poisoned the present. The neighborhood continued to evolve. Young families moved in, drawn by good schools and reasonable HOA policies. The tool sharing program expanded to include lawn equipment and seasonal items. Block parties became regular occurrences, and people actually knew their neighbors instead of just nodding politely when paths crossed. I eventually joined the HOA board myself, not as president, but as a regular member focused on maintaining community standards, without the authoritarian approach that had characterized Patricia's tenure. At my first meeting, someone joked about my qualifications being GPS-related. We all laughed, acknowledging the elephant in the room, and then moved on to actual business. Serving on the board gave me new perspective on the challenges Patricia had faced. Enforcing rules was complicated, especially when dealing with people who genuinely disagreed with those rules or who had legitimate hardships preventing compliance. The difference was in approach. Where Patricia had wielded rules as weapons, we tried to use them as guidelines while maintaining flexibility and human compassion. One board meeting involved a discussion about a homeowner who had let his lawn go unmaintained for weeks. The old Patricia approach would have been immediate violation notices and fines. Instead, we authorized Greg to knock on the door and check if everything was okay. It turned out the homeowner's wife had just been diagnosed with cancer, and lawn care had understandably fallen off his priority list. The board voted to have the community maintenance crew handle his lawn for free until his situation stabilized. The homeowner nearly cried with gratitude. That was what HOAs should be, I realized. Communities supporting each other, not bureaucratic organizations punishing minor infractions. The GPS roof rake eventually wore out after 8 years of heavy use. The telescoping mechanism failed, and the blade cracked during a particularly heavy snow removal session. I bought a new rake, similar but improved with modern features. I did not put a GPS tracker on it. The neighborhood culture had changed enough that theft was no longer a concern. We had built trust and mutual respect, the things that make communities function properly. I kept the old broken rake in my garage for a while, unable to throw it away despite its uselessness. It was a historical artifact, a physical reminder of an important moment. Eventually, I donated it to the local historical society when they put together an exhibit on neighborhood governance and community relations. The curator thought it was a fascinating inclusion, a tangible object connected to a story about accountability and justice. My life moved forward in expected ways. I got a promotion at work, my daughter graduated high school, and I started thinking about retirement plans. The roof rake incident became further distant, a story told less frequently but never completely forgotten. Patricia Cunningham moved away eventually. I heard through neighborhood gossip that she and her husband sold their house and relocated to Arizona, seeking a fresh start away from the memories and judgment. I hope the change of scenery helped her. Everyone deserves the opportunity to learn from mistakes and rebuild their lives. The new family that bought Patricia's house was friendly and immediately got involved in community activities. Their kids played with neighborhood children. They hosted Halloween parties, and they treated the HOA as a helpful resource rather than a governing authority. It was exactly what the neighborhood needed. Reflecting on the entire experience years later, I recognized how many small decisions and circumstances had aligned to create the outcome. If I had not installed the GPS tracker, I likely never would have recovered the rake. If Officer Jensen had not taken me seriously, the case might have ended with a police report gathering dust. If Ada Brennan had not recognized the coercion element, Patricia might have faced only minimal consequences. If I had chosen to push for maximum penalties instead of accepting the plea, the outcome might have been more severe but also more emotionally draining for everyone involved. Life is a series of choices and consequences, patterns and results. Patricia chose to steal because she felt entitled to take what she needed regardless of ownership. She chose to lie when confronted because she valued avoiding embarrassment over doing the right thing. She chose to issue the violation notice because she believed her authority protected her from accountability. Each choice led directly to the next consequence, creating an inevitable chain that ended in criminal charges and personal disgrace. I made choices too. I chose to install the GPS tracker out of caution. I chose to confront Patricia directly before involving police. I chose to pursue charges when she refused to make things right. I chose to accept a plea agreement that achieved justice without being vindictive. Each of my choices shaped the outcome as much as hers did. The lesson, if there was one beyond the obvious "do not steal" things, was that accountability matters and that technology can be a powerful tool for establishing truth. In a situation that might have devolved into, she said, arguments, the GPS provided objective evidence that could not be disputed. It transformed a potentially ambiguous situation into a clear-cut case of theft. My roof rake, both the original and its replacement, continued serving its purpose winter after winter. Snow fell, I cleared it. Life went on. The cycle of seasons provided comforting predictability in contrast to the unexpected drama that had once disrupted the routine. The Willowbrook Estates community thrived, growing stronger and more connected with each passing year. The tool-sharing program expanded successfully. The HOA maintained standards without harassment. Neighbors helped neighbors. It was not perfect because human communities never are, but it was functional and generally positive. I sometimes told the story to new neighbors who asked about neighborhood history, always framing it as a cautionary tale about power and accountability rather than as personal grievance. Most people found it darkly humorous, the absurdity of an HOA president committing a felony over a roof rake. But beneath the humor lay serious principles about how authority should be exercised and what happens when those principles are violated. The GPS tracker that had proven so crucial eventually ended up in a drawer somewhere, forgotten until I stumbled across it during a spring cleaning session years later. The small device, no bigger than a matchbox, had been instrumental in achieving justice. I held it in my palm, marveling at how something so small could have such significant impact. Technology continues advancing, and tracking devices have become even smaller, more accurate, and longer lasting. My daughter suggested I should put air tags on all my valuable equipment. I laughed and told her about the roof rake, how a similar device had solved a crime years before she was born. She rolled her eyes at her dad's old stories, but seemed impressed by the clever use of technology. The neighborhood evolved continuously. Greg Stanton eventually stepped down as HOA president, replaced by a young couple who brought fresh energy and ideas. They implemented digital communication systems, created a neighborhood app, and modernized record keeping. The HOA became more transparent and accessible, lessons learned directly from the previous administration's failures. I contributed where I could, attending meetings when able and volunteering for maintenance projects. I never sought leadership positions, content to participate without the responsibility of authority. I had learned from watching Patricia that power attracted certain personality types, and I had no desire to navigate those dynamics. My relationship with Derek remained strong over the years. We still met regularly for beers, fishing trips, and sporting events. He eventually moved to a different part of Fargo, but stayed connected to Willowbrook through me. He loved telling the roof rake story to anyone who would listen, embellishing slightly with each retelling until I had to correct the more outrageous exaggerations. The prosecutor's office occasionally used the case as a training example for handling HOA-related complaints, and demonstrating how property crimes could escalate to more serious charges when additional elements like coercion were involved. Ada Brennan called me once, years later, to ask permission to include details in a presentation at a legal conference. I agreed, proud that something positive came from the experience beyond my personal situation. Detective Hendricks retired from the police force, and I sent him a thank you card acknowledging his professional handling of my case. He responded with a handwritten note, saying it was one of the more satisfying investigations of his career, because the evidence was so clear and justice was achieved efficiently. He appreciated that I had documented everything properly from the beginning, which made his job significantly easier. The legal system worked in my case, but I recognized that was not always true for everyone. I had been lucky to encounter professionals who took me seriously and had the evidence to support my claims. Many people face similar situations without that luck or those resources. The experience made me more sympathetic to others dealing with neighborhood disputes or property crimes that might seem minor to outside observers, but had major impacts on the victims. Years accumulated, seasons changed, and the roof rake incident gradually became ancient history to newer residents who had never known Patricia Cunningham's tenure. For those of us who had lived through it, the memory remained vivid, a shared experience that had shaped the community's identity and values. I maintained my house diligently, cleared my roof each winter, followed reasonable HOA guidelines, and lived peacefully among good neighbors. The drama of that November morning when I discovered my rake missing seemed like a lifetime ago, yet the principles it illuminated remained relevant. Respect other people's property, hold authority figures accountable, document everything, and remember that technology can provide objective truth when human accounts conflict. My roof rake, replaced once and maintained carefully, continued its simple purpose of removing snow from my roof each winter. It was not famous anymore, just a tool doing its job. Sometimes I thought about its predecessor, the GPS-equipped rake that had brought down an HOA president, and smiled at the absurdity of it all. Life is strange sometimes, full of unexpected moments that seem insignificant until they suddenly reveal larger truths about human nature, power dynamics, and community values. A stolen roof rake became a catalyst for positive change in an entire neighborhood, exposing problems that had been festering beneath surface-level civility. As I entered my later years, looking back on the experience with the perspective time provides, I felt grateful for how everything unfolded. Justice had been served without destroying anyone beyond what their actions warranted. The community had learned and grown. Positive changes had occurred, and I had discovered that standing up for yourself, even in situations that seem minor, can have ripple effects far beyond the immediate conflict. The roof rake story became part of Willowbrook Estates folklore, told to newcomers, and referenced when discussing HOA policies. It served as a reminder that no one, regardless of position, is above basic standards of honesty and respect. Patricia Cunningham's name faded from frequent mention, but the lessons of her downfall remained embedded in the community's collective consciousness. I eventually sold my house and moved to a smaller place closer to my daughter's family. The new owners were a young couple excited about their first home. During the walkthrough, I showed them the garage and pointed out the roof rake. "Take good care of that," I said. "It's more important than it looks." They laughed, not understanding the reference. I did not explain. Some stories are better left to be discovered by those curious enough to ask longtime neighbors. As I drove away from Willowbrook Estates for the last time, I looked back at the neighborhood that had been my home for so many years. The streets were quiet, lawns were maintained, houses stood proudly under the North Dakota sky. It was a good community, stronger for having confronted its problems and better for having held its leaders accountable. The roof rake remained behind, mounted on its brackets in the garage, ready to serve new owners through countless winters ahead. Somewhere in a box in my new house, I still had the old GPS tracker, a small piece of technology that had proven justice could prevail when truth was documented and pursued. Patricia Cunningham had stolen my roof rake on a cold November morning years ago, setting in motion events neither of us could have predicted. The GPS tracker led police straight to her, exactly as intended. She was arrested, charged, convicted, and removed from power. The system worked, accountability was enforced, and the neighborhood emerged stronger. It was a simple story about property crime that revealed deeper truths about power, community, and justice. And it all started because I decided to put a $30 tracking device on a $400 roof rake.